bookkeeping, and payroll, either in person, drop-off, or through their secure client portal. Belmont Business Consultants in Eaton and Dayton is standing by. Call them in Eaton at 937-472-3300 or in Dayton at 937-252-2217 or on the web at belmontbctxs.com.
The Menards 15% off bag sale is here. Whether you pack it, load it, stuff it, or stack it, if it fits in the bag, you save 15%. Need new tools? Updating your bath or faucet? Or simply want some snacks? Put them in the bag and save 15%. So pick up a bag in-store at Menards and find out how much you can fit in the bag. Now through January 24th. See store for complete details.
Save big money at Menards.
The Justin Kinner Show. Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, everybody, we welcome you in live here on a Tuesday, the Justin Kinner Show, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. We are off and rolling, like I said, here on a Tuesday. A lot to get into. It's the first show of the week. We were off yesterday. We're back off and rolling. A ton to get into. National champion officially crowned, the Hoosiers. How about that? Who the hell is that? Who saw that coming? Who saw that coming? The Hoosiers win their first national championship in program history. And I've heard all the debates all day about Indiana. You know, how they're the best story in college football. They're the best story in sports, in my opinion. And, you know, you look at Indiana, up until this past season, they came into this season as the losingest program in the history of college football. That honor, of course, was stolen from them by the great program that is the Northwestern Wildcats. So shout out to Northwestern. They are now the most losingest program in college football history, but only by a few games. So Indiana can they can reclaim their crown next season if they truly wanted to. And will that be the case? Was this a one-off? Is Indiana a Cinderella national champion, or are they a power here to stay? I think that the NIL and everything else shows you that they are a power here to stay. I see a lot of people that try to discredit Indiana and say things along the lines of, well, they had to buy it. The only thing that they did is the same thing that Ohio State does in Alabama and Georgia and every other power out there, is they spend money on a roster. It doesn't guarantee you a championship. Ohio State spent as much money on their roster as Indiana did. They lost to Indiana. Miami spent a ton on their roster. Notre Dame spent a ton on their roster. I mean, these programs spend a ton on their rosters. This isn't a situation where nobody else spent money on their roster. Indiana did. Boom, national champions. No. Indiana, to me, is the single best storyline in all of sports right now. And the question I heard earlier today was, Indiana, are they the most unlikely sports champion of all time? Are they the most unlikely sports champion of all time? Let's be clear. Indiana had a phenomenal season last year. They only lost 2 games. Both losses were against Notre Dame and Ohio State, who ultimately met in the national championship. Indiana even was able to climb the ranks and get ranked up in the top 5 last year. I didn't buy that they were top 5. Nobody believed that they were the top 5. We all believed that they were pushed into the top 5 to kind of, for them to set up a top 5 showdown between Ohio State and Indiana. You watched that Ohio State-Indiana game last year. Indiana did not look like a top 5 team. Then Indiana loses a lot of guys. They go back to the portal and they plug a lot of their holes on the roster. Still didn't believe it. You had a very cocky head coach in Cignetti. He started the season really agitating a lot of people by bringing up the fact that, hey, we're going to schedule like the SEC schedules. Taking a dig at the SEC when you are Indiana, everyone mocked them. Everyone laughed at them. Even I kind of rolled my eyes and said, listen, I agree with your scheduling philosophy. I just think you need to maybe not be so cocky because you're Indiana at the end of the day. You're Indiana at the end of the day. It just doesn't make sense to go out there and poke the bear, except this entire time we found out Indiana's the bear. Indiana's the bear you don't want to poke. Indiana's the bear you don't want to poke fun at. And we saw why last night. We saw why all season. 16-0, national champions. And to be honest, a lot of people believe that game could have been a blowout. The game was actually a lot closer than what we had all anticipated. I thought Indiana was going to win in a rout. 27-21 the final, 16-0, Indiana undefeated, national champions. and to do it in the 12-team college football playoff era. You know, it wasn't a lights-out performance by Fernando Mendoza, 186 yards, 16-27 through the air. Miami's defense really good. They got to Mendoza. Mendoza made some plays late. That play where he was just a pinball. He looked like a human pinball machine, just bouncing off multiple defenders, spin move, and diving into the end zone with his ribs exposed. He probably can't breathe today, but you know what? Who cares? He's a national champion. He's a Heisman Trophy winner and probably the number 1 overall pick. The last time the Heisman Trophy winner finished the season undefeated, won a national championship, and was the first quarterback taken off the board going number 1 overall. I think you all know that guy. He's playing an hour south of here in Cincinnati, Mr. Joe Burrow. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. But it's Indiana, 937-518-1410. You could text or call into the show. We're off and rolling here. Is Indiana the most unlikely sports champion ever? Has there ever been a team to win a championship that just totally came out of left field that nobody truly thought? I don't even think the most diehard Indiana fans came into this season saying, oh, yeah, Indiana's going to compete for a national championship. Nobody thought that. I didn't think there was a chance in hell that they were going to get back to the playoffs coming into this season. And if you think about how Indiana's season started, again, they're 16-0. They didn't lose all year. But keep in mind, remember game 1 of the regular season, they played Old Dominion. 27-14 was the final. 27-14. And if you guys remember, keep in mind, okay, that it was a tie game. The very first quarter of the 2025 college football season for Indiana, they were at home against Old Dominion. Not the band, the Monarchs. Okay. It was tied 7 apiece. The team that won the national championship last night, the team that routed Alabama, the team that destroyed, Oregon, the team that beat Ohio State to win a Big Ten championship, the team that went 16-0. That dominant Indiana team, if you go back to week 1 when they played Old Dominion at home, at the end of the first quarter, it was 7-7. At halftime of that week 1 game, it was 17-7. And Indiana only put up 10 more points in the second half. In fact, they gave up another touchdown to Old Dominion late. After seeing that, I was like, okay, Indiana, you talk smack about your weak schedule. You needed a full 4-quarter game to beat the likes of an Old Dominion. Good luck against Kennesaw State and Indiana State. And guess what? They beat Kennesaw State 56-9. They beat Indiana State 73-0. They punched top 10 Illinois at the time 63-10. They beat Oregon by double digits on the road at Oregon by 10. The Penn State game was probably one of their uglier games. It was their ugliest game throughout the Big Ten season, and they won 27-24 in a game that I wasn't really giving them a whole lot of credit for, but they found a way to get it done on the road, and then they just took care of business. 31-7 against Wisconsin, 56-3 at Purdue, 13-10 against the Buckeyes in the Big Ten championship game, and then, of course, a 38-3 routing of Alabama, 56-22. They probably could have pounded on more if they wanted to against Oregon, and then the 27-21 final last night. To me, this isn't difficult. Nobody saw Indiana as a legitimate national championship contender, much less a national champion. And that's what the Hoosiers are. They are, to me, the most unlikely sports champion ever. Another team that I kind of put in that category. I forgot what season was it that the Toronto Raptors won an NBA championship. Nobody viewed with Kawhi Leonard. And think about what had to happen for Kawhi Leonard and the Toronto Raptors to win the NBA championship a few years ago. I mean, it took, Steph Curry getting hurt. It took Kevin Durant, his Achilles, to be bursted. Like, it took every member of that super team, the Golden State Warriors, to go down to where it was up to Klay Thompson to try to save everything. Klay Thompson went out. Steph Curry had to try to save the day. I'm sorry. That, to me, Toronto, you could say, was an unlikely champion. Nobody saw that coming, but it made sense why they won. I mean, they won because Kevin Durant was out, Steph Curry was out, Klay Thompson was out, Steph Curry got banged up. It wasn't a surprise that Kawhi Leonard and the Raptors won an NBA championship. It's not now, had they beat a fully healthy Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, if they beat a completely healthy Golden State Warriors team, oh my goodness. To me, that would then put them in the category of the most unlikely champion ever, or at least in that conversation. But it made sense. Like them hoisting up the NBA championship trophy at the end of the season, it made sense. They don't beat a healthy Warriors team. They just don't. Indiana, this is what I love about the playoff, though. is you had to beat Ohio State, you had to beat Alabama, you had to beat Oregon for the second time, and you had to beat Miami in the national championship game. On the road, basically. Miami got a home game. They got to play on their home field. Ryan Roth, what a great story, but with NIL, we will see more of this since you could buy a team. Ryan, I see, this is where I opened up with. I see a lot of people trying to discredit what Indiana did, but the bottom line is Ohio State spent a lot of money. They couldn't even get out of round one of the playoff. Alabama spent a ton of money. Georgia spent a ton of money. Notre Dame couldn't even make the playoffs, and they spent as much money as Indiana. So I get why that's where naturally people want to go with this. But the only thing that NIL has done for Indiana is it has allowed them to kind of scoot up to the adult table with everybody else. But you still have to go out there and win all 12 regular season games. You still have to go win your conference championship game. You still have to win 3 to 4 playoff games to hoist up the national championship trophy. So while I understand the resistance to want to go all in with Indiana and try to discredit it by bringing up NIL, I just can't do that because, hey, they're doing NIL really, really well, but so is Ohio State, so is everybody else, and not everybody else is hoisting up trophies. LSU, NIL God. They ain't hoisting up a trophy right now, right? Texas A&M, all the oil money. The Longhorns, how much NIL money did they have? They didn't even make the playoffs. So I get it. I understand it. But to me, at the end of the day, Indiana, they are the most unlikely sports champion in the history of sports. It's not even close, in my opinion. Not even close. 937-518-1410. I have unlocked the phone lines. You can also text. If you can't call in, I get it. Text me. 937-518-1410. Indiana, are they the most unlikely sports champion ever? Why or why not? Text the show. Call the show. 937-518-1410. We'll get to your calls next.
The Justin Kinner Show. Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Texting enrolls you in a recurring automated marketing text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
The team's looking good this season.
I think so. Man, I miss playing football. Ever since I turned 40, I just can't find that fire I used to have.
Think it could be lower testosterone?
What do you mean?
I was feeling the same way. After 40, the body has less testosterone, and men lose their edge. That's why I take Nugenix Total T2.
That's the testosterone booster, right?
Yes, but Total T2 is their brand new formula that skyrockets nitric oxide levels in as little as 3 hours. Since I started taking it, I've been lifting like when we played for Coach Carter. My energy is way up, and it even spiced up things between me and the missus.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles?
Yep, just send a text.
Text AREA to 42424 for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T2, the next generation testosterone booster. Text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo X, our newest, most powerful fat burner ever, absolutely free. Text AREA to 42424. That's AREA to 42424. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
At Fisher Investments, we may seem like other money managers, but we're different.
Are you really that different than the rest of us?
We are. As a fiduciary, we always focus on what's best for our clients.
What services do you offer besides investing?
We have a team of specialists in financial planning, estate planning, and more.
Your clients rely on you for all that?
Yes, we ensure clients receive unparalleled service at every step of the relationship.
Okay, but you still sell commission-based products, right?
No, because we believe that's a conflict of interest. We prioritize service over sales goals.
So then how do your fees work?
We have a simple and transparent fee that's a percentage of our clients' portfolios. So we do better when our clients do better.
Wow, we're more different than I thought.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at fisherinvestments.com.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss. Trust and Will is an online estate planning service. Visit trustandwill.com for details.
Trust and Will.
My dad and I were always close, but some things we just didn't talk about, like his will. After he was gone, we found out he didn't have one, and it created a lot of stress during a time of grief.
Creating a will can be hard to think about, but avoiding it can lead to greater difficulty for the people you love. That's why Trust and Will makes estate planning simple. Create a will online in as little as 30 minutes.
Now, I have a will in place to make sure my loved ones are protected. With Trust and Will, it was easy and affordable. And I got peace of mind knowing my wishes are clear.
Trust and Will.
Get 20% off when you visit trustandwill.com/plan. That's trustandwill.com/plan to get 20% off. trustandwill.com/PLAN.
Hey, Cordell Transportation is now hiring experienced Class A CDL drivers, excellent pay, benefits, and a $5,000 sign-on bonus. Apply right now, online at CordellTransportation.com. Do it right now. Driven to succeed.
Arrowhead Tax Service in New Carlisle is more than a tax preparer. We're your friend. Stop and see Michael Maxwell and Joe Tannis at their new office at 100 South Church Street in New Carlisle. Whether you have personal or business taxes, Michael and Joe are here to take care of all the details for you, down to the last penny. Allow our experience to ease the burden of doing it yourself. Make an appointment at 937-543-5770 or online at arrowheadtaxservice.com, where our target is your satisfaction.
Are you living with dry AMD? If so, you could be on the road to geographic atrophy, or GA, a condition that leads to retinal cell death and permanent vision loss. But with Izervay, you can
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay slows GA progression by targeting a key source of retinal cell death, which may help preserve your vision longer. Izervay, or Avastin Captive Pagel, is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com. Paid for by Astellas Pharma.
Hello, it's John Kozik, founder and president of TurboTrack Realty, and I buy houses as is, fast for cash. Call me today for an all-cash offer on any of your properties, and we can close within days at 614-470-2000, 614-470-2000. Do you own a property that's outdated and needs thousands of dollars in repairs? Great, I'll buy it. Give us a call today for an all-cash offer at 614-470-2000, 614-470-2000. Would it be convenient for you if you could simply take what you wanted and leave the rest behind? Great, I'll buy it. I buy vacant properties, inherited homes, divorce situations, death in the family, apartment buildings, rental portfolios. I even buy my tenant won't pay me the rent houses. Call TurboTrack Realty today for an all-cash offer and speak with one of our friendly staff members at 614-470-2000, 614-470-2000.
The Justin Kinner Show. Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Paul Frischner from the Rebound Rundown. He's going to hang out with us coming up here just around the corner. The Redhawks of Miami, they're undefeated at 19-0. They finally cracked the top 25. They're at Kent State tonight, so we'll talk about that with Paul Frischner coming up around the corner. Wright State in first place at the top of the Horizon League. They've won 7 straight. They look to make it 8 straight with a win over Cleveland State tomorrow. And then, of course, they'll have their big rivalry matchup with Northern Kentucky on Saturday. Both of these home games this week, and we'll tell you how you could get tickets to both of those. You could buy tickets at WSURaiders.com, but I have a chance for you to get free tickets, and I'll tell you how coming up here just around the corner. The Dayton Flyers, well, again, they're 5-0. They're sitting atop the A10 with the unbeaten conference record, sitting there at the top with George Mason, who got a big win. They're 6-0 at the top. But St. Louis, who just cracked the top 25, Dayton and St. Louis both 5-0 in A10 play. Dayton, they're not in the at-large conversation right now. They got to fight their way to get back into that conversation, but they're off to a good start. 5-0 in A10 play. You have a couple games, 3 games between now and the 30th when you play St. Louis against teams in the bottom of the A10. You win those, Dayton will have an opportunity with 2 against St. Louis, George Mason. They have VCU around the corner as well. They're going to have an opportunity to win their way back into the conversation, but they got to take care of business against these teams that they're favored over, which they've done a good job of to this point. But the Anthony Grant era, if it tells you anything, the range of the Anthony Grant era, a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, ranked number 3 in the country, to losing at LaSalle. I mean, that's the range that you get with Anthony Grant. So I have no clue what to expect, but expect the unexpected. They've made every game look ugly. Hell, even the beatdown that they just had the other night against Loyola. How about that first half? It was hideous, but boot to throat in that second half, and they got it done. So we'll get into college basketball more coming up with Paul Frischner from the Rebound Rundown here in about 15 minutes. All right, Indiana, they win the national championship last night. How cool is that? 3 straight national championships coming out of the Big Ten. Okay, 3 straight national championships coming out of the Big Ten. Michigan, Ohio State, Indiana. How do you think that makes Notre Dame feel, by the way? If you're a Notre Dame fan, that has to be painful. I don't think there are I don't think there are 3 other programs that disgust Notre Dame fans more than those 3, and you just had to watch all 3 of them win it in 3 straight seasons, including losing to Ohio State in one of those. I mean, it's kind of wild. It's kind of wild, and everyone knows my disdain for the Notre Dame program. Love Marcus Freeman. I still don't agree with him letting his team quit. He could say he left it up to the captains, but you're the head coach. You run the program, Mr. Freeman. You let your team quit. Don't try to pass it off and say, oh, man, it's just so respectable, these men, to decide that they're going to be quitters. Oh, yeah, way to sign off on that, Mr. Freeman. I love Marcus Freeman. I think he is wrong for letting his team quit, and I thought they looked like a bunch of crybabies nonetheless. But it is what it is. I'm glad that they had to sit back and watch the 3 most hated teams. You could put USC in there. Maybe USC gets it done next year. That'll just be the cherry on top for all Indiana, for all Notre Dame, as far as that goes. But Indiana gets it done last night, and I'm telling you, based on what you guys thought about Indiana, you could sit there and say, well, it's not surprising that they won a national championship. Look how good they are. Nobody saw that coming this season. Nobody. In fact, last year I thought, man, Kurt Signetti, he's very cocky for a guy that got exposed by the only 2 good teams that he truly played in his first year. But he's really riding this personality thing. He's going to get exposed at some point. He hasn't been exposed. 2 seasons in as head coach at Indiana, his only losses Ohio State and Notre Dame, the 2 teams that fought, in the national championship last year. Since then, beat down Alabama, beat down by double digits, beat Oregon by double digits twice, including the most recent one, the beat down in the Rose Bowl or in the semifinal. Beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. I mean, they had credible wins in the regular season. They obviously had to earn this national championship. I mean, you played the U. You played Oregon. You played Ohio State. All right, or you played Alabama. I'm sorry. You played legitimate teams. Indiana deserves this national championship, but nobody saw it coming. Is Indiana the most unlikely sports champion in the history of sports? I believe that they are. Okay, to give you some examples, okay? This was a good one. Let me go to the text line, 937-518-1410. Casey texted into the show. Casey said he's not going to be able to listen to it, but he said he's going in to get a haircut. Casey, happy haircut, by the way. Casey said he's going in to get a haircut, but the team that he believes is that would fit that most unlikely build. How about Villanova in 1985? He said they were 18-10 to start the tournament. They were the number 8 seed. They lost to Georgetown twice already, who only lost once going into the championship. They had to shoot 78% from the floor to win by 2. That might be the most unlikely until Indiana football won it last night. That's a great example. That's a perfect example right there. Some of these have been broken down. So I kind of like the Dirk Nowitzki Dallas Mavericks 2011 NBA Finals run. All right, if you remember that season, everyone thought that it was crazy that they kept that roster together. You had Tyson. I like Tyson Chandler. I think he's a good championship piece. He won a championship. You had Tyson Chandler. You had Jason Kidd. It was an old veteran roster, and you had to go up against the Heatles. You had to go up against LeBron, Bosh, Wade. It didn't get off to that smooth of a start, but the Heat got on fire. No pun intended. They made the run. They got to the finals. Everyone thought that the Heat and LeBron was going to win that NBA championship that year. Dirk Nowitzki got his only NBA championship. Jason Kidd got his NBA championship. They all got it done. The Mavericks in 2011. I think that's a good one to put on the list of the most unlikely. No, but I mean, it was a surprise to see Dallas get to the finals, but then to beat LeBron, Bosh, and Wade, I like that one being on there. How about my hockey people out there? Okay. How about the Golden Knights? The 2017-18, it was their expansion year. It was the very first season of existence for the Golden Knights. They were an expansion team. All right. And all expansion teams, and really, it's pretty common across all sports. Expansion teams are horrible as far as that goes. But they reached the Stanley Cup final, right? They reached, they got there in that first year. I think that one's a good one. So again, you could continue to go down this list. How about and I remember this season too, the Lakers in 2003, 2004, they went out and they got Karl Malone and Gary Payton. Today's NBA fans, we're not shocked when a big name goes and teams up with other big names. Like, nobody is in awe when that happens anymore. In fact, usually it just pisses people off. For me, I remember Gary Payton, okay? Gary Payton, I love the Supersonics. I hate that they took that team away. The NBA, they need to right that wrong and bring it back. But Gary Payton, all right, Karl Malone with the Jazz. And to see Karl Malone and Gary Payton team up with Kobe and Shaq, that was the NBA favorite. There was no doubt about it. Then you have the Pistons, Chauncey Billups. What a weirdo that guy is. You remember the cheating, the sports betting scandal. That's besides the point. Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace. All right, you had Larry Brown leading that team. Love Larry Brown. I was a huge Larry Brown fan. But Detroit, with no superstar player, they were just a good team. They were the better team, but nobody saw them beating the Lakers. Nobody saw them beating the Lakers. So I don't mind the Pistons being on that list, but you could do all of that you want. The Pistons have won championships in their franchise's existence. I get that. The Marlins, that's another one that was just sent in right now. They had a payroll near the bottom in 2003. That sounds about right. That sounds like the Marlins. That was supposed to be a rebuild year. Young roster that stunned the Yankees. Beckett was on that team. I mean, they got unbelievable. I still can't. I have not come across an example to me that trumps what we just saw last night in Indiana going on to win the national championship. No, nothing comes close. Indiana, the most unlikely sports champion in the history of sports, as far as I'm concerned. William Yelly on Facebook says, no, you just go buy grown adults to play against kids. This ain't rocket science. William, I get it. Is Indiana the only team that's doing this? No. Oregon's doing it. They throttled Oregon. Alabama's doing this. They throttled Oregon. Ohio State's doing this. They beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. Miami's doing this. They beat Miami in the national championship game last night. I get it. You don't want to give them credit for beating the William and Marys and the non-con. You don't, when they're playing the literal nobodies. I get it. They're playing Old Dominion. All right, Kennesaw State, Indiana State. They're playing a bunch of nobodies. Okay, cool. I'm with you. But let's not act like, Indiana's cheating and that they're above everybody else. It's a level playing field. NIL has allowed a program like this. We're not going to discredit Indiana for NIL allowing them to finally have an equal playing opportunity with all the other programs who have been doing this way before it was legal. I'll never believe that, like when Ohio State does the moral high ground stuff of, well, now that everyone could do it. Now, look, everyone's catching up with the SEC. Ohio State, you were the SEC team of the Big Ten. That's why I always roll my eyes when Ohio State people start taking shade at the SEC, because I'm like, hold on. Let's not sit here and pretend like Ohio State's clean. We're not going to do that, are we? Let's just, whatever. It is what it is. But Brian Fraley brings up the fact that they did it with 0 5. That's the other thing. 0 5-star recruits on that roster. Less than a handful of 4-star recruits. This was a team that was coached up and that delivered. And the lights never got too bright. This is the losingest program in school history, in college football history, or second, if you will. Shaw, he chimes in. Indiana has changed everything. Every coaching change moving forward. This will be the expectation. Every team now. Why recruit out of high school? Just go get the best 23 and 24-year-olds. Congrats to Indiana and Coach Signetti. I still feel like there's some shade being thrown towards his way, but he's doing what everyone else is doing. As far as that goes. William Yelly says Notre Dame is lowering their academic standards to get better players now. Ha ha ha, pathetic. I did read that. Smart, by the way. Smart. They lowered their academic standards to allow, to make it easier to go, because they've missed out on so many elite athletes over the years because, hey, they matched the criteria to play at Notre Dame. They just didn't match the criteria to learn at Notre Dame, and they lost out. You can't do that in today's cutthroat sport. You can't invest all this money into football and still be your own worst enemy and creating these academic rules that are getting in your way because we're trying to pretend like academia means anything. No one cares about academics right now. That's why I laugh. Every program out there that puts out their little GPA graphic, I always chuckle lightly. I'm like, good for them. Good for them. I mean, their student advisors are doing a very good job on those tests for them. I tell you what. I mean, somebody's taking those classes. Somebody's taking those tests. I just have a hard time believing it's the athletes. Let's just be real. Nonetheless, Chad Kinser, he's on the Justin Kinser Show YouTube channel. Speaking of expansion, didn't Carolina and Jacksonville play each other in a Super Bowl shortly after their expansion year? I can't remember. Carolina, when they had Jake Delhomme, they played the Patriots. They kind of made it there fairly quickly, but the NFL set up for that as far as that goes. But either way, William Yelly says, get grown men out of college sports. Oh, I'm with you. I think it's ridiculous. Did you guys see the Carson Beck quote from the other day? A reporter was just trying to do a fun little feature piece on the athletes, how they're balancing school. It's adorable. How they're balancing school and preparing for a national championship. And he's like, lady, I graduated 2 years ago. I don't have class. Like, this is a problem, but it's not an Indiana problem. I mean, that's on Miami's roster. Getting mad at Indiana for winning a national championship with 23 and 24-year-olds after they just beat a team that had a quarterback that graduated from college 2 years ago and hasn't gone to class in 2 years. Like, I think we just need to realize that using that to discredit Indiana, we got to stop doing that. Criticizing that to criticize college football, I'm all for. I mean, I'm 36. I'm not that much older than these dudes that are still playing in college after all these years. That's kind of crazy to me. That's kind of crazy. I'm 36. I should not be saying that I'm only 12 years older than the average age of these rosters right now. That's kind of wild to me at the end of the day. Shaw says it's not an Indiana problem. It's a college sports problem. I agree. Definitely not a problem for Indiana. They love it. Ann Anderson, go Broncos. Ann Anderson says, who cares? It was a great game. And what has happened to the SEC? Like it or not, the Big Ten has won the last 3 football championships. Absolutely. I definitely don't feel bad for the SEC. I kind of love it. Steve Stetler says it's about a culture change, too. Those players bought into it big time. Yeah. Because it's not just, the Indiana, this is the most improbable championship ever. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody. Because that's the other thing, too. Like, Miami could have won that national championship. Nobody would have said, man, nobody saw Miami winning this. That's different. It's different. Coming into the season, Miami, everyone looked at and said, man, look at all that money you spent on NAL. You got Carson Beck. You have a good defense. You have a legit shot. No one looked at Indiana and thought they had a legit shot in the Big Ten. Nobody. Especially to win a Big Ten championship, to beat Ohio State, to beat Alabama, to beat Oregon by double digits twice. But nonetheless, let's go back to the text line, make sure I didn't miss anything. 937-518-1410. Oh, wow, this is a book. I don't know who texted this in. I'm not going to be able to read all of it. But referencing the Yankees and Steinbrenner, and all that type of stuff. Well, I'll reread that during the break and get it to. We have Paul Frischner from the Rebound Rundown. He's going to hop on with us coming up here around the corner. We'll get back into this here shortly. But, yeah, if there's any team I'm missing, is there any other national champion, NBA champion, Super Bowl winner, Stanley Cup? It doesn't matter. Can you think of any other champion that was the most surprising? Nobody saw this Indiana team making the run that they did. Undefeated. Number 1 in the country. Number 1 seed in the playoff. I mean, it's pretty wild. The most improbable champion ever in the history of sports. The 2025-26 college football champion. The Indiana Hoosiers. Good for them. Good for them. Fun story. College football needed it. Speaking of a good story, how about the Miami Redhawks? They're 19-0. 19-0, and they cracked the top 25. We'll talk about that with Paul Frischner. Wright State, they have a big rivalry game with Northern Kentucky on Saturday, but they have Cleveland State before that. Dayton trying to remain unbeaten in A-10 play. They have 3 games against teams in the bottom of the A-10 before they have their big showdown at St. Louis, who finally cracked the top 25 themselves on January 30th. We'll talk about all of that and more with Paul Frischner from the Rebound Rundown. We'll be right back.
The Justin Kinser Show. Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Have you heard? Bath Creations has moved to their new location and showroom at 8741 North Kimmel Road in Clayton. This gives you even more opportunity to see the incredible amenities and craftsmanship Bath Creation offers. With Bath Creations, you get a beautiful, modern bathroom that is safe, comfortable, and affordable. Attention first responders, veterans, and active military. Save an additional $500 off your purchase. Visit at 8741 North Kimmel Road in Clayton or online at mybathcreations.com and get a new bath today.
You can make the decision right now to get lasting relief from that awful joint pain. Don't go another year compromising because of that pain in your knees or shoulder. Call QC Kinetics now. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in regenerative non-surgical pain relief. Your body has what it needs to restore and repair that damaged joint tissue. And QC Kinetics can make it happen. No drugs, no surgery, no downtime. The future of pain treatment has arrived, and QC has tens of thousands of satisfied patients all over America. People with back pain, hip pain, any pain associated with arthritis or an injury. This is not a Band-Aid. This is a revolutionary treatment that can get you moving again. Get your life back. And listen, it's non-surgical. If this is the year you decide to fight back against that pain, take the first step now. Call QC Kinetics. Get a free consultation on your calendar today. Call 937-936-0325. 937-936-0325.
Italian subs for your finance team at Chicago. Easy Cater. Burritos for your call center crew in Plano. Easy Cater. Bagels for your sales reps meeting clients in Charlotte. Easy Cater. Hot chicken sandwiches for your third shift warehouse workers in Memphis. Easy Cater. Your teams may be spread out across the country, but you've got one platform to feed them all, whenever and wherever they work, with food they love from favorite restaurants. Easy Cater. Food for the workplace, all in one place. Order now at easycater.com.
Progressive knows there are some surprisingly expensive things in life, like rugs. People say a rug would really bring the room together. And sure, you don't know what that means, but it sounds important. Suddenly you're using words like jute and sisal. Then you see the price and lose it, because how can the thing you walk and spill on cost so much? So you devote your life to taking down Big Rug. But then you remember that switching your home and auto to Progressive could save you hundreds. So looks like Big Rug is safe. For now. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states.
Gold demand is skyrocketing to record highs. As more Americans rush to preserve their savings, will there be enough gold? I'm Dr. Ron Paul, and I believe physical gold is the only way to truly protect your 401k or IRA savings. Gold offers tangible security that can't be tracked, stolen, or inflated. That's why I strongly advocate for gold IRAs. To learn more, text the word SECURE to 989898 now. Birch Gold Group will send you a free info kit on gold IRAs. Birch Gold is the only gold company I trust, and their thousands of great reviews prove I'm not alone. So don't wait another second. Protect your retirement savings today and see how easy it is to move your IRA or 401k into physical precious metals. Text SECURE to the number 989898 for your free gold IRA info kit. Again, SECURE to 989898.
Message and data rates may apply.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest, the last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the
designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your
windshield wipers? eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying, just beautiful.
Millions of finds, each with a story. eBay. Things people love.
Shopping with your parents can be embarrassing.
Why would they sell jeans with holes in them? I'm going to speak to the manager.
Mom!
That hoodie is giving. You should get it. YOLO.
Thanks to the Chase mobile app, your kid can shop independently while you keep an eye on their spending. So you can go from
we can be twinsies
to
how was shopping? Saw you stayed on budget.
Thanks, Mom. Freedom for kids, control for parents. That's family banking from Chase.
Account subject to approval. Chase mobile app is available for select mobile devices. Message and data rates may apply. JP Morgan Chase Bank N.A. member FDIC.
Are you ready to tackle this tax season alone? Well, you don't have to. Belmont Business Consultants and Tax Services, with its 30-plus years of experience, is here to help you with business and individual taxes, bookkeeping, and payroll, either in person, drop-off, or through their secure client portal. Belmont Business Consultants in Eaton and Dayton is standing by. Call them in Eaton at 937-472-3300 or in Dayton at 937 877-252-2217 or on the web at BelmontBCTXS.com.
Hey, Cordell Transportation is now hiring experienced Class A CDL drivers.
The Justin Kinner Show. Right here on 1410 ESPN.
All right, everybody, we welcome you back. It's the Justin Kinner Show, Dayton's ESPN Radio 1410 Wing AM. Again, first show of the week, off yesterday due to the holiday, but we are back to get into college basketball-wise. I look forward to this segment each and every week now as we're, obviously in the heart of the college basketball season. Paul Frischner again with the Rebound Rundown. Awesome enough to give us some time on the show here today and every week for the remainder of the college basketball season. How are we?
Great to see you, Justin. Let's get to it. How are we doing?
Not bad, not bad. Look, with so much NFL stuff and everything out there, I'm like, this is the time where we really get to focus on the stuff I like to focus on, which is more college basketball. Living in a city like Dayton, you in Cincinnati, I think this is a great region to be a college basketball fan in. So let's just, nonetheless. But I want to start. Let's go with the Red Hawks. They did it. Last week we talked about what's the possibility of them ever being able to crack the top 25. Can they ultimately accomplish that? They put up 100 points. It took overtime. They defended their home court. Great crowd on hand. They beat Buffalo and ultimately finally cracked the top 25. The Red Hawks did it for the first time since 1999.
Yeah, and look, I said this on last week's show. The AP poll, ranking Miami is probably one of the most harmless takes that you can have because the AP poll has no bearing on, whether you're going to make it into the NCAA tournament or anything like that. It's good publicity. It's good vibes for your program. It's a reward for how you started the season. I don't think anybody's arguing about, how Miami scheduled. We all know, we've all heard the narrative the entire season, but now you still have to go out there and win the games, right? And they're 19-0. They have their most difficult game of the season remaining, at least by KenPom, if you go by winning percentage. Their most difficult game of the season is tonight at 7 o'clock at Kent State. Rob Senderoff team, always a good team in the MAC. He's known usually for a really strong defensive team, but this is actually his worst defensive team at Kent State since he took over up there with the Golden Flashes in 2012. It's their fastest team. They play a really up-tempo game, and I think that bodes well for Miami tonight because if you get into a track meet and you get into a three-point shooting contest, that's what Miami wants because they get up and down the floor, they shoot well. Now, I thought that was going to happen a little bit on Saturday against Buffalo. The problem was Miami couldn't make their free throws, left a lot at the line, top 5 free throw shooting team in the country, and they missed double-digit free throws on Saturday against Buffalo. If they had cashed in at the line, Justin, it wouldn't have even gone to overtime, but instead, needed a buzzer beater to survive against Buffalo at home in front of a great crowd. It's fun to see Millette jazzed up like that. And, just for the Red Hawks, you hope that they keep it going.
You've worked with Coach Steele. You've had conversations, interviews with them in the past. I thought it was unique for him pounding the table as hard as he has been about them cracking the top 25. A lot of times you don't get that from coaches. They just try to brush that off and say, we're not worried about that. We don't even pay attention to that. It's all about us getting better game to game. It is refreshing seeing a coach like that actually use his mic time to push that narrative out there that, yes, don't punish us for not, playing or for teams not wanting to play us. Now, I don't think anyone's punishing them, but ultimately they're 19-0. They're in the top 25. It has been refreshing seeing a coach say, hey, we do care about those things. Those things do matter, especially as a mid-major program. When you're a Power 4, you expect to be in the top 25. It is what it is. But for the Miami to have this opportunity, it was refreshing seeing him attack that the way he did.
Well, yeah, look, the MAC has been a one-bid league since 1999 when Wally Zerbiak was there and the Red Hawks were ranked last. Miami made it and Kent State made it that year, but since then it's been a one-bid league. No MAC team has been ranked in 7 years. It's a big deal for Miami. It's a big deal for the conference. It's a big deal for, the fan base. Like, it means something to be in the top 25. And I understand if you're going by the analytics, if you're going by the team sheets for the NCAA tournament, if you're doing all that and you're getting into the weeds of the numbers, the AP poll doesn't matter at all. It is truly like a vibes-based deal. But when you want to be rewarded for those vibes, Justin, it is important to be in the top 25. And, I know a lot of mid-major coaches and conferences and programs around the country are looking very closely at what is happening with Miami right now, because you're saying to yourself, look, they scheduled how they scheduled, which is not very difficult. They went out there and won the games. The difference is, if there are mid-major teams that are sitting here right now thinking, should this be how we attack our schedule? The difference is you have to win those games. I mean, you think about it, Miami was down 13 against Old Dominion in their season opener. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about this narrative, right? They'd have one loss. They'd be just another one-loss team with a great story like George Mason or St. Louis out of the A-10.
Paul Frischner with the Rebound Rundown with us here. And, it is unique. We just watched Indiana win a national championship in college football last night, and the way that they've gone about their roster is different than everybody else. So when you said that there's a lot of teams paying attention to what Miami's doing, a lot of mid-major teams paying attention to that, let me ask you, how are they doing it? What happened with this roster? How was this roster put together, and why are they having the success that they are on the floor? I mean, you could say, yes, it's the three-point shooting, but it's all about the building of the roster. What has Coach Steele done with this roster that has made it stand out from some of the other top mid-majors in the country?
Retention is plain and simply, they played the retention game and it paid off. And I mean, they're without their starting point guard right now, Evan Ipsaro, who's been out for a month now since he got hurt in that Ball State game in the middle of December. But they only went to the transfer portal, I believe, for Almar Atlason. And otherwise, they brought pretty much everybody back. And you have Peter Suter, who was the preseason MAC Player of the Year in one of the polls that was released before the season started. You have Antoine Woolfolk, who's a big presence down low. And then you also have Brant Byers, who's emerged as maybe the best player on the team's leading scorer, and somebody that for sure is going to get some high major looks in the portal coming out of this season. So what you've done is you've developed and you have paired a little bit out of the portal with mostly retention. And because of that, you have a very experienced group that's well-disciplined, they're well-coached, and they do the little things right. And their offense looks fluid, and that's why they've been able to win.
Again, the Red Hawks, the number 25 team in the country, 19-0, look to make it 20-0 tonight. They are a 1.5 favorite on the road at Kent State. So that's a big one to keep an eye out, an ear out for coming up later on tonight. So Miami, the Red Hawks in the top 25, another team locally that expected to be in the top 25 that isn't, the Cincinnati Bearcats. We know the up and down season, or more downs than ups, but a week ago, you and I were discussing, hey, are Bearcat fans actually going to have paper bags over their heads watching home Bearcat games? And here we are a week later, and all of a sudden vibes are completely different. I remember last week we said, hey, the talent on this roster, it wouldn't surprise me if they flip a switch and turn this thing on because the talent's there. They just haven't been able to put it together. Well, almost facing public shame from their home fans might have been that trigger because they look like a completely different basketball team as of late.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here, Justin, and pretend that I predicted them to beat Iowa State, but in a way, I'm really not all that surprised because, for one, Iowa State has really struggled over the last 5 or 6 seasons under Otzelberger in January. They have multiple losses in January every year in that span after really starting the season strong in the non-conference. They got blown out last week at Kansas, which obviously very tough place to play. But then you come to Cincinnati, and Momcilovic has, 30-plus points. I think he hit 7 or 8 threes, maybe 9 threes, somewhere in that range. But outside of him, they only had 2 double-figure scorers. It was Joshua Jefferson and Momcilovic. Those were the only 2 double-figure scorers for Iowa State. Cincinnati was able to really make it difficult on the Cyclones to score, and then they got enough offensively. And the most important thing for Cincinnati is that when it got close with about 5 minutes left, I mean, Cincinnati was leading this game by double figures. When it got close, it got down to a 4 or 5 point game there with about 5 minutes to go. That's where we have seen Cincinnati fold. I mean, Cincinnati is very, very close to being 5-0 in the Big 12 with wins over Houston and UCF and West Virginia. And then you throw in there a win over Iowa State. I mean, at that point, you're talking about the NCAA tournament, but instead they folded down the stretch against Houston. They folded down the stretch against West Virginia. They folded down the stretch against UCF. And now you're sitting there at 2-3 with the win over Iowa State. And what's your reward for beating Iowa State? The number 1 team in the country on Wednesday night out at Arizona.
Yeah, and again, that's just and we thought that number 2 Iowa State game, oh man, things are bad, and now they're heading into that matchup. That was an opportunity to get everyone, to change the perception, but you're at number 1 Arizona. It'll be interesting to see what happens on Wednesday night with that matchup, or tomorrow night, I should say, when they get there. Again, their next 2 on the road after beating Colorado and Iowa State, both at home in back-to-back games here. So moving on, and we'll go to the Horizon League with Wright State. Wright State, their win streak continues. They only had 1 game last week. They've now won 7 straight. They're 7-1. They're sitting atop the Horizon League. One thing you talked about last week was the difference with the Raiders from the last couple of years to this year's has just been how much improvement we've seen defensively. One of the key strengths that has led to them improving their defense has been their ability to kind of slow down the opponent's three-point shooting ability. I about texted you last week because, well, Youngstown State, they popped off for 14 threes against that Wright State defense. They held on for a 93-83 win at home, but Youngstown State went off from 3. I thought that was hilarious because that's the most threes they've given up all season. Youngstown State couldn't miss.
Yeah, for sure. And you look at a guy like TJ Birch, who's been phenomenal for Wright State this season, and some of the offensive players that have carried them. But at the same time, it really has. It's been their defense for Wright State that have been able to, turn the page and get them to a point now where they're only sitting with 1 loss in Horizon League play. They lost their opener to Youngstown State, and since then, 7-0. Right? So you're sitting there at 7-1. You have some pretty good wins in the Horizon League, and now you have 2 games this week, though. Northern Kentucky has a bye week this week. They don't play until Saturday night against Wright State. Northern Kentucky looked like they had maybe turned a corner, and then they dropped the one to Robert Morris over the weekend. But Wright State has Cleveland State on Wednesday. Now, they're both at home. You have a 3-game homestand here, but you have 3 straight games at home where you have Youngstown State, you give up, 14 threes. Then you have Cleveland State in the middle of the week. And then it's NKU on Saturday. And I think that NKU Wright State game is going to tell us a lot about where both teams are coming down the stretch of the season, because it's such an emotional game for both teams. It's a rivalry game. But at the same time, I mean, these teams aren't going to meet again until the last game of the regular season. So to set the tone for the end of January and into February, where you're really in the stretch run of conference play and you're trying to set yourself up for the Horizon League tournament, Wright State is going to have to rely on what they can do defensively, because Northern Kentucky has struggled at times offensively. They try to play up tempo. They try to score. There have been times when, maybe their offense could be a little better than what we've seen. Northern Kentucky has had troubles defensively too. So if you get to a point here this week where Wright State can go in there and kind of assert themselves defensively, that bodes well for Wright State on Saturday night.
Yeah, and Wright State, too, they've been able to do it with missing key components. I mean, some of their main guys, Michael Amarbe, their post player. I mean, he missed that game against Youngstown State, and they get a win. Michael Cooper, their leading scorer, he's a true freshman. They got him back. He came off the bench. He looked like a guy that missed a few weeks. He really couldn't get anything going. They just have a deep roster, and it's that next man up mentality. I hate cliches, but it's kind of worked for them. They're tough to game plan for because they don't have one guy. Like, if we stop this one guy, we're going to win. They don't have that, and that's what I think makes them such a tough out.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think I'm really intrigued to see Saturday night who's able to, kind of establish themselves in that game. Because, like I said, Northern Kentucky and what Darren Horn keeps talking about after games is wanting consistent defensive effort. And I've liked Northern Kentucky's offense. I said a minute ago, there have been times where they've gone cold, or maybe they've relied on a guy, like Donovan O'Day goes for almost 40 points last night. Probably 35 in that game earlier in the week against Detroit. So, they have had different guys step up. Can they stay out of foul trouble? Can they defend consistently for 40 minutes?
Again, Wright State, as you mentioned, Cleveland State on Wednesday, and then the big one with Northern Kentucky on Saturday. Both of those games at home at the Nutter Center for Wright State, who's 7-1, and they have a 1-game lead sitting at the top of the conference. Still a lot of the season left to be played, but this is the best start that Wright State has had in Horizon League play since going back to that 2021-22 season. Oakland sitting behind them at 7-2. And then Green Bay, the Phoenix. Wright State will see Green Bay for the second time next week when they make their Milwaukee trip. What do you make of the turnaround for old Doug Gottlieb and the Phoenix over with Green Bay?
Yeah, it's been impressive. I mean, a lot of people wrote them off, right? A lot of people, kind of saw the Doug Gottlieb thing and thought it was a shtick and what's really going to happen there. And I mean, look, there's still a long way to go in the season, and they're 240th on KenPom. But I mean, to start 6-3 in the Horizon League after last year, you go 2-17, and two of those your 2 wins came in your last 5 games of the season. To be able to go now to a point where, you rattle off 5 straight wins in conference play, in the month of January, you slip up against an Oakland team that's looked fantastic under Greg Campy, blown out by Oakland. But I really think the way that Doug Gottlieb has turned it around is, for all of the outside noise, it's been impressive.
Yeah, maybe he, excuse me, maybe he should have probably stopped that radio show a while back. Look, people gave him so much heat for that. I mean, I might have been one of them too, but the thing is, that would have been a huge win for you get to March Madness, they always do those feature pieces. That would have been the coolest feature piece done, national radio host by day and NCAA tournament, team coach by night. I really wanted that storyline to work. It just wasn't, but I don't think it's a coincidence that since he's put his full time and effort into leading the team and not balancing it with the radio show, they've looked like a different team. We'll continue that. As we wrap it up, we'll stay here in Dayton with the Dayton Flyers. Last week, you talked about it. I mean, if you would have said coming into the season, to your point, man, you're going to beat Georgetown, you're going to beat Florida State, you're going to get a win against Marquette, you're going to be 5-0 in A10 play and not even sniffing in that large conversation, that's just kind of mind-boggling, but that's the situation they find themselves in. St. Louis, along with Miami, also cracked the top 25. That was a big deal for the A10 and a very big deal for Dayton because they have 2 with St. Louis. One of those, the first one coming up on January 30th. They have a few games against teams near the bottom of the A10 between now and then. This is a big stretch for Dayton, not in the at-large conversation now, but 2 at St. Louis, 1 against George Mason. They still have VCU around the corner. They have opportunities to play their way back into that conversation, but it is nice seeing Dayton along at the top with George Mason and, of course, top 25 team in St. Louis sitting at the top.
Yeah, and look, Dayton's 14-4 on the season. They're undefeated in the A10, and they've played with fire. There's no doubt about it. They have played with fire in A10 play, but they've survived. They've done what they've needed to do. They've survived, and I talked about it on the Rebound Rundown this morning, that the top of the A10 has been so incredibly entertaining this season between St. Louis, who looks like just one of the most fluid offensive teams in the country. They've been a ton of fun to watch. George Mason's games have been thrilling with Tony Skinn out there. VCU, they're not undefeated in the A10, but they've still been great to watch. And then, of course, you have Dayton, who we're talking about right now. And Dayton, for all of the criticism that they have incurred on themselves at times this year, some of it has been deserved, but at the same time, now here we are sitting there at 5-0, and it hasn't been the most difficult stretch of A10 games. It's probably been one of the easier stretches that you could have, and that continues this week with LaSalle and St. Joe's. But those are 2 road games. It's always hard to win on the road in college basketball. I was really impressed with John Simon in that game against Loyola on Friday night. I thought he kind of carried Dayton when they needed that emotional, energetic kind of spark right in there, somebody scoring that needed to go in there and make some plays. I've been really impressed with him, especially with Jordan Durkak being out as well. Amal Latang comes back from injury. You're starting to incorporate some of these pieces. You want to see them get fully healthy, but you also still have 10 days now before you play St. Louis. You and I will talk again before that St. Louis game, Justin, and those games, right? Those are the ones that really matter. The 2 against St. Louis, when you play VCU, you have VCU twice, you have St. Louis twice. Beating those teams, that's what's going to really make a difference. You only have George Mason once, but you're still going to have 5 chances against the top of the A10. Absolutely. You talked about it again. Dayton, 5-0 in the A10. St. Louis, 5-0. George Mason, they get a win to get to 6-0 at the top of the A10 right now. But that's what it's all about. They got some big games down the stretch, but they have some very winnable games coming up. And that's been the downfall for Dayton in recent years. That has almost wiped out tremendous non-conference resumes because they will beat the top teams of the A10, but then they'll have 2 or 3 games that they lose at the bottom of the A10 that you just scratch your head saying, how does that happen? They can't afford that this season. They have to go out there. We know they're one of the top teams of the A10. They just have to play like it consistently coming up.
at LaSalle, at St. Joe's, Rhode Island, and then they'll be at St. Louis on the 30th. And as you said, we'll talk before then as well. Paul Frischner, Rebound Rundown, awesome enough to give us the time. Tell us about the Rebound Rundown and where people could find it, the podcast, and all the other coverage that you do locally for all our college basketball teams.
Yeah, Rebound Rundown, it covers Dayton, covers Miami. We mix in some Wright State in there, Xavier, Cincinnati, all of the Cincinnati area teams, and I had Wally Zerbiak on today's show talking about the Red Hawks. And it's an everyday show, Monday through Friday, about 10, 15 minutes for your morning commute. Gives you everything you need to know about the local teams.
All right, good stuff. Paul Frischner every Tuesday hangs out with us here on the Justin Kinner Show. Paul, you the man, sir. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Justin. Talk next week.
All right, more of the Justin Kinner Show when we return.
20% every single month. That's pound 250. Say Mike Rowe for the gift that keeps on saving from America's wireless company. Pure Talk.
2026 is here, and at Staples, deals mean business, like up to $100 off custom print orders. Head into the new year looking good for less. Staples, that was easy. Ends January 31st.
The Justin Kinner Show, right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, and we are back. It's the Justin Kinner Show, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. Paul Frischner, appreciate his time from the Rebound Rundown. Make sure you look for the Rebound Rundown podcast wherever you get your podcast. But Paul's going to hang out with us every Tuesday as we'll, of course, touch UC, Xavier, Wright State, Dayton, Ohio State. When that time comes, we'll get to all of that every week for the remainder of the college basketball season. So just keep that in mind. But if you missed that, don't worry. Make sure you subscribe and download the Justin Kinner Show podcast wherever you get your podcast. If you missed the Paul Frischner conversation, we'll talk about the Dayton Flyers. We'll have all of that coming up more here in just a bit. So, all right. Over the weekend, had a chance to take the show over to Cincinnati. Appreciate those who stopped out and said hello, by the way. Reds Fest, very cool event. No one puts on it. Like, the Reds put on the biggest fan fest of any professional team in Major League Baseball. Say what you want about them. Yes, they, to be honest, I'd rather give up Reds Fest for a center or for an outfielder that can hit a ball out of the ballpark. I would give up Reds Fest for that. As far as I'm concerned, I think we're all there, right? I think we could all understand that. But no, nonetheless, if you missed our conversations at Reds Fest, we're going to have that coming up for you here. I had a chance to catch up with Hunter Green. I had a chance to catch up with Phil Castellini. And I got a lot of this from people. Well, you really went hard at Phil Castellini. Not the time, not the place. Trust me, I'm as frustrated as every Reds fan out there. And one thing I kept saying in my interviews at Reds Fest was I would remind people, I know I have a sports talk show, but the only difference between me and you, the Reds fan at home listening, is I have this mic and you don't. Outside of that, we're the exact same. I'm a Reds fan. All right. That at the end of the day, I want a winner. I want to be talking about a team that's contending for the playoffs, winning in the playoffs. It's active in free agency. And at the end of the day, as we talked about last week, I want a team that's active in free agency. They have been. They just haven't got the player that you want. I want them to be a playoff contender. They are. They made the playoffs last year, and their roster is better than last year's playoff roster, so that they're checking that box off too. I want more done, but at the same time, I think that this team is going to be just fine. I did have a chance we closed out Reds Fest with Emilio Pagan. And I have to say this, like, as we head into this offseason or head into this season, I don't think you're going to truly appreciate what the Reds did until you start to see the success on the field and just how important having a good bullpen, what that means. Right? I don't think we are ever going to truly feel like right now. I don't expect anyone to feel warm and fuzzy about what this team did in the offseason because none of the moves that they made were super sexy. And, I'm a Browns fan, as you guys know. I know you guys are just learning this, right? I'm a Browns fan, as you guys know. And the Browns, back-to-back seasons, where they're picking at the top of the draft. The Browns have a lot of holes and deficiencies that they need to fix. This isn't just they're a quarterback away or they're this away. I thought that coming into the season because that defense is really good and still is. But I thought they had a very good run game and had a very good offensive line. They don't have either of those things right now. So they have to attack the trenches. Their offensive line is old. There's not a lot of options in free agency. They have to draft. There's not a lot of great options in free agency, and they're going to have to hit on the draft. So all of us, after coming off of a bad season, you want to feel like your front office is hungry and that they are willing to go all out to help improve your team. The Browns are going to do a lot of things this upcoming offseason. The majority of it is going to be trying to fix the trenches, trying to get the fat guys up front, the just better, fatter guys up front, which means I'm going to find this offseason very underwhelming. It's going to be boring. I'm not going to get excited about any offensive linemen that they add because nobody cares about offensive linemen. Fans don't care about offensive linemen, right? And that's kind of how I feel with this Reds team. Nobody, like, bullpen arms aren't sexy. Nobody is getting excited about the bullpen arms that the Reds are adding in the offseason. But we are going to truly appreciate it come April, May, June, July, and hopefully into October when the Reds have one of the best bullpens in baseball. I think that's when we're going to appreciate what the Reds just did this offseason. Was it the greatest of all off seasons? Hell no. But they went into the offseason and they had a very weak bullpen that they needed to fix, and they have a team that needs to improve the long ball. They need to improve the lineup from a hitting perspective. But we always knew that the Reds were never going to be able to fix the lineup and the bullpen. And had the Reds fixed the lineup and didn't address the bullpen, you'd be pissed about how many games the Reds were giving up due to giving up leads late in games, blowing saves. You guys would be furious about that. But let's say they would have got, that they would have got Kyle Schwarber. Now, I get it. A lot of you would say, well, why couldn't they get both? That's not how this works. It's how we want it to work, but that's not how they work, and you know that. Let's say they got you Kyle Schwarber, 56 home runs last season. Imagine what that number would have been at Great American Ballpark if he played 80 of his 160 games at Great American Ballpark. Imagine what that number would be, right? So you get that, but now you're losing close games because they didn't get to fix the bullpen. Emilio Pagan, that was one of my favorite interviews, actually. He's a very personal guy. I like Emilio Pagan. I had a fun conversation with him. But him and I talked about it. Like, it feels like, if you talk to him, he feels like the Reds just absolutely loaded up this Reds team. And that's because they technically did. You guys just don't realize it yet. You want the flashy players, in the NFL. I want the Browns to go get the biggest wide receiver name out there. Go trade for an A.J. Brown. Go get a big name at wide receiver, because that's how I'm going to feel like you truly improved this roster. How you truly improve the roster is improving the offensive line. Because the Bengals have all of it. They have the superstar quarterback. They have 2 number 1 wide receivers. They have it all. But they have nothing because they're not great up front and their defense stinks. And you know the drill. But if all the Bengals did this offseason was just retool that offensive line, well, they have defensive issues too, but you see my point. Like, the non-sexy moves are the trenches, but they're the most important moves. And that's what the bullpen is to me. And the Reds, they went out and got Brock Burke in a trade. All right, they got Caleb Ferguson, another really good lefty. Pierce Johnson, who I found out, obviously, him and Emilio Pagan, they're best friends. All right, they played together during COVID, and when you're in that lockdown bubble, they weren't allowed to spend time with their families. They became family, basically. And when Emilio Pagan found out, all right, that Pierce Johnson was going to be available, they got on the phone and said, let's go play somewhere together, but I'm telling you where I'm playing. I'm playing in Cincinnati. I want you to come here. Emilio Pagan sold Pierce Johnson on the Reds, and Pierce Johnson is now officially a Cincinnati Red. So I'm fine with it all. Yeah. These are the moves that aren't the sexiest, but they're the most important. Because getting a Kyle Schwarber and investing into him that much to still to lose a lot of games because they can't close out games and they blow a lot of saves, to me, I'm glad they went this route. The Reds are being linked to Andujar. There is talks of the Reds potentially showing interest in bringing him back. I like that as well. I think that's a cheap, affordable bat. What I will say is I really hope they get Eugenio Suarez, because then you guys can't sit here and say that the Reds didn't do everything that they could do more. Don't get me wrong. But if they end up clearing up money to go get Eugenio Suarez, the power bat that they've been looking for, and they revamp that bullpen to one of the best in baseball, I don't know how you could sit there and be displeased with what they did this offseason. I was never expecting them to hit a home run, no pun intended, in free agency. And I actually think that they kind of did, whether you like it or not. If you're going to make improvements in the offseason, don't just make 1 or 2. Go all in. And they said, well, we can get an average bat here and a bullpen arm here and try to fix both. Or we can go all in on one side of the ball. And they went all in on the bullpen. They invested heavily. And that bullpen's a legit bullpen. So there you go. What up, Kirk? Kirk on YouTube says, he's talking to Chad on there. But he brings up A.J. Brown, saying A.J. Brown will be traded to the Patriots. I get that, but like that's a name that if your team needs help offensively, and the Browns get A.J. Brown, oh, man, that's a big, sexy move. But how much better does that make the Browns? I don't know if it does because that offensive line stinks. If the Browns load up that offensive line this offseason and don't go get a wide receiver, I'm going to be upset. But that's the equivalent to what the Reds just did. To me, the most important thing the Browns could do is fix that offensive line. I want the wide receivers. I want the flashy players, yes. But having wide receivers and a great quarterback and running backs and all this, it means nothing if you don't have the fat guys up front. And getting Kyle Schwarber means nothing to the Reds if you don't have the arms in the bullpen to close out games and close out wins. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. Coming up, you'll hear my conversation with Phil Castellini. We talked, of course, about 1 year in. One thing that Phil and I talked about was just the rush of them last year going after Terry Francona. There really wasn't a lot of optimism that they were going to get Terry Francona. They got Terry Francona, and we're 1 year in, already in the playoff berth already under the belt. What can you expect in year two? We talked about that with Phil Castellini at Reds Fest. Great stuff from Hunter Green and Andrew Abbott. And one of my favorite interviews that you'll hear later this week as well was from TJ Friedel, who I think is one of the most underrated Reds. I mean, when he's hitting in the leadoff spot and he's healthy, it's not a surprise when the Reds are producing runs. It's when he's at his best at the top of the lineup. Because I think he's a very undervalued leadoff hitter. And maybe I shouldn't say that because the Reds, everyone thought TJ Friedel was as good as gone after last year. The Reds made sure to bring him back. I'm a big TJ Friedel guy. Okay. Statistically was one of the better hitting center fielders in baseball last year from an average standpoint, of course. Obviously power, all that, but still, I'll take it. But TJ Friedel is going to be taking some reps out in left field this spring training. I learned from TJ that, he actually, when he came up, he was actually he was playing in left field originally when he got called up because Nick Senzel was getting some time in center field at the time. Friedel, who's played the corners before, is no stranger to it. He came up as a left fielder, said that he's going to be taking some reps just to kind of get a better play on the angle, just to see the angle again. He did not take reps in left field last year. In fact, that's when they became kind of stuck on how to kind of maneuver some pieces around. Nonetheless, but they're going to be moving some guys around. Noave Marte in center possibly as something they're going to look at, a more athletic center fielder. I think that's a move about being able to use TJ Friedel this season. I don't think TJ Friedel's a long-term Red after this year, but I think finding out if Noave Marte could play center, I think is actually a good idea. I like that. He's athletic, covers a lot of ground. He's fast. And if he can zero in on those and make some of those highlight catches and be a good defensive center fielder, I think that sets the Reds up, defensively for a guy that they're going to be counting on a lot offensively as well. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. We opened up talking about the Hoosiers. Are they the most unlikely champion in the history of sports? I say that they are the most unlikely sports champion in the history of sports. Kurt Signetti in Indiana. No doubt. I believe that they are. I don't think anybody expected them to do what they just did. As the season went on, I'm like, oh, they're better than we thought. They could be a playoff team. But man, oh man, for them to finish it out, to close it out the way that they did, pretty remarkable. Pretty remarkable. All right, we'll get more of that as the week goes on. We're going to step away. I want to get to the Phil Castellini interview when we come back. There's other stuff I want to dive into this week. The CJ Stroud thing, the struggles in Houston. I'll give you a brief little highlight of what I want to talk about with this on tomorrow's show. But CJ Stroud reminds me the Texans are in the same spot that the Browns were with Baker Mayfield. And this is why I want everyone to pay attention to all the coverage of CJ Stroud, because I'm one of them. I thought CJ Stroud was horrific over the weekend. 4 interceptions in the first half alone. I thought he was horrific. And this isn't just a one-game sample size that I'm going off of. People jumped my case. I'm like, take your Buckeye caps off. CJ Stroud was such a phenomenal quarterback his rookie season. I thought the sky was the limit. He came in, last place Texans, leads him to a division championship, leads him to a playoff win in year one. And to his credit, they have made the playoffs every year since he's been drafted. They have won a playoff game every year since he's been drafted. But he has regressed. He has not improved. He has not shown that same promise that he did his rookie season. And now Houston's in this situation where they have to decide, are they going to extend him and pay him? Are you actually going to pay him? Because the market shows that 50 mil plus range is where he's going to fall. Are you actually going to give this guy 50 mil a year? I wouldn't. And this is the same spot that the Browns are in with Baker Mayfield. I said tomorrow's show, and look at me going into it, but I'm this annoyed with it. Everyone mocked the Browns, saying, man, you're going to give Baker Mayfield 35 a year. Keep in mind at that time, that 35 to 40 range Patrick Mahomes, I think at the time, had just got about 45. So that 35 to 40 range was about right for Baker. Like, you're not going to get paid Patrick Mahomes money, who just won a Super Bowl, but you're going to get paid about market value in that range. It didn't happen. The Browns were ridiculed for, I can't believe you're going to pay him. And then they decide, you're right, we can't trust him. We got to make a drastic move to improve at quarterback. We're going to go get Deshaun Watson. And then everyone said, you had Baker Mayfield and you just let him go. Well, because everyone was ripping the Browns, saying, you're going to pay Baker Mayfield? That's where the Texans are at right now with C.J. Stroud. You're going to pay C.J. Stroud? I think the Texans, the C.J. Strouds of the world, I've said this before, the Andy Daltons, the Baker Mayfields, the C.J. Strouds, those are the scariest quarterbacks to have in the NFL because it's tough to find a C.J. Stroud. It's tough to find a Baker Mayfield. It's tough to find an Andy Dalton. But what it's also tough to do with is ultimately accomplish your ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl. They're too inconsistent. Andy Dalton was solid. I would kill for an Andy Dalton-esque quarterback in Cleveland right now. But people say, but he can't win in the playoffs. I'm like, let's just get to the playoffs. I dream of the day that I'm complaining about a quarterback that can't get it done in the playoffs. I just want a quarterback that can get us there. I would kill for a C.J. Stroud type of quarterback in Cleveland right now because there's levels to this. Baker was that first level of, oh, we're going to win enough games and we're going to become a postseason team. Cool. Oh, you're just so inconsistent. Good 1 year, bad the next, solid the next year, injury riddled, bad again, good again. It's a yo-yo. We can't keep up with this. C.J. Stroud's the same thing. Just good enough to win you double-digit games. Just good enough to compete for division titles. Just good enough to win a wild card playoff game. But he's not good enough to win in the divisional round. He's not good enough to ultimately take you where you want to go. And that's not just a 1 year sample size. That's 3 years. How many years do you have to see C.J. Stroud do the same thing over and over? How many years did you have to see Baker do the same thing over and over? And he's doing the same thing in Tampa that he was doing in Cleveland. Everyone mocking the Browns for moving on from Baker Mayfield. He's doing the same crap in Tampa that he was doing in Cleveland. Really, really good. Really, really bad. Really, really good. Oh, he's injured again. This is why it was tough for the Browns to marry Baker Mayfield long-term, because you just don't know. And the Texans are in that same boat. You just don't know. Now, to the Bengals' credit, they were able to get an extension done with Andy Dalton in the early 2010s, but it wasn't a crippling contract. It didn't handicap them, but that was a tough decision. Bengals fans were pissed off when he initially got that extension, but I defended the Bengals at the time because I said, you don't just let Andy Dalton's go. But I also would have supported the Bengals had they said, but we also know we can't get where we want to go with this guy. The Texans are in a tough spot. They're in a tough spot. When you draft a quarterback, you need them to be really, really bad or really, really good, no in between, because the in-betweens are dangerous. The in-between is how you end up, is how you end up in the Jaguar situation, spending $55 million a year on Trevor Lawrence, who was okay this year. Wasn't great. You're still overpaying for him. Because when you're in between, that's how you end up with Tua, a stupid contract for a guy that doesn't come close to playing to that level. Joe Burrow's worth every dime you paid him until he gets injured, which is constantly. But when I watch Joe Burrow play, yeah, he's worth 55. The Bengals, they don't regret giving him 55. The Dolphins sure as hell regret giving Tua 55 or whatever that number was. I know the Jags regret giving Trevor Lawrence that, but at the same time, if you go back, the Jags can't just let Trevor Lawrence go. You don't just let the Tuas go. Those quarterbacks are the scariest ones to have. I would much rather have Dylan Gabriel than C.J. Stroud. Now, people could clip that and make me sound stupid. I'm not stupid. Here's what I mean by that, and maybe I am stupid. I would much rather have a Dylan Gabriel who he sucks. I know he stinks. I know he's not a franchise quarterback. I knew it. You knew it right off the bat. But what you don't, if you have CJ Stroud, you sit there and you're like, well, there's something there. And we're out of time. His rookie contract stuff. We got to make a decision. We got to pay him. Crap. We can't pay him $55 a year. We can't do that. That's ridiculous, right? Like, there's no way. By the way, another example, and I know he was really, really good this year, but Daniel Jones with the Colts, good for him. But the Giants, Daniel Jones, he won some games. They won a playoff game, and they gave him $40 million, which at that time was a lot of money, and everyone was like, what are you doing? He was not worth the $40 million. That hurt them. He just wasn't good enough, and they moved on from him. Now, I know he looked really good with the Colts, but let's see if he can do it, consistently. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show. My ADD is on fire today. My apologies. But like I said, the scariest quarterback in the NFL to have is an Andy Dalton. It's a Trevor Lawrence. It's a CJ Stroud. It's the quarterbacks that are just good enough to be longtime NFL journeyman quarterbacks. Those guys are even tough to find. Cleveland can't find one of those. Well, they technically did, and they moved on from them, but you guys told them to. Browns haters were mocking the Browns for almost paying Baker Mayfield. Now you mock the Browns for moving on from Baker Mayfield. You can't have it both ways. The Texans are in a tough spot. They're wrong if they let CJ Stroud go elsewhere. But they're also wrong if they pay him $50 million. And that's the tough spot that they're in. Kirk says, I will defend Dylan Gabriel. I think he will make a good career backup. I get that, but his problem was he was drafted in the 3rd round. You don't draft your backups. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But either way. Adam, what up, Adam? Adam says you could also say Vikings are in the same boat as Houston when it comes to quarterback. Now, yes and no. I will take CJ Stroud over JJ McCarthy any day of the week. I think Mike McCarthy, what'd I say? Sorry, but you know what I mean. McCarthy, I said Mike McCarthy. We're going to talk coaching here in a bit with the Steelers, but that's besides the point. I'll take CJ Stroud over McCarthy any day of the week. But the Vikings are also in that boat. They just don't know. And they were in that tough spot because they drafted McCarthy, and they also had, obviously, a veteran quarterback. They had Sam Darnold, who led them to 14 wins last year. And they let him go, and now Sam Darnold is a game away of leading the Seahawks to a Super Bowl. Oof, it's tough. It's tough. All right. That was supposed to be my teaser segment for tomorrow. We'll get into that tomorrow. We just got into it now, but that's besides the point. All right, good stuff. Phil Castellini, had a chance to catch up with him at Reds Fest. We talked about Terry Francona. We talked about year 1 in the books. And, of course, he is extremely excited about Sal Stewart. Everyone's excited about Sal Stewart. Phil Castellini, extremely excited about Sal Stewart. And we'll have all that for you coming up around the corner. The Justin Kinner Show, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.
The Justin Kinner Show. Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
When you think of the most exciting team in Dayton, it's okay if you don't think of the doctors and therapists at Premier Health. We don't have jerseys or trading cards. We don't get primetime coverage. We don't sell out arenas, have good drip, or autograph sessions. We're just happy to be your team's favorite team.
Bag huge savings with Menards 15% off bag sale. Peak 50/50 antifreeze and coolant provides your vehicle with year-round protection, and it's compatible with all vehicles. Pick up a 1-gallon jug of Peak 50/50 antifreeze and coolant for $6.99 after you put it in the bag. Now through January 24th. Plus, get 15% off everything you can fit in the bag. See store for complete details.
Save big money at Menards.
Hello, it's John Kozik, founder and president of TurboTrack Realty, and I buy